Today I'm going to teach you how to crochet the perfect holiday pet collar. It's very simple and quick to make. You just need to know the basics of crochet, like a single crochet, a chain, and slip stitch. As you can see, I've made it in 2 different sizes here. This is from 2 different yarns. This is with a bulky weight yarn, and this is with worsted weight yarn. You can see they came out quite different, but the exact same pattern. This one's my favorite. It's quite the dramatic look on him, but this one's cute and dainty. It's adorable too. You can use any color you want and any type of yarn. Just make sure that the colors that you choose are the same size, and it's helpful if the yarn has some stretch to it, like an acrylic or a nylon blend, because we'll be stretching this over our pet's head and we want them to be comfortable, so a little bit of stretch is helpful. In today's tutorial, I'm going to be using this yarn. It's actually a red, but it looks more orange, especially compared to this one, so it kind of bothers me. And we're also going to be doing green, but I think this yarn will be easier for you to see in this tutorial. I'll put all my yarn and hook information in the description of this video. Apart from yarn, you're going to need a hook, obviously, scissors, a needle, and maybe a stitch marker. I'm going to use one today for the video. Alright, but that's it, and let's get started. So we're going to begin by making a foundation chain, and this chain is going to be the center of our collar. Now remember, since we're pulling it over our pet's head, we don't want it to be too tight, but also take into consideration, once you start adding stitches to that chain, it might stretch it out even more. So it's a good idea to check sizing after the chain and then again after row 1 to make sure it's a good fit. Now, the amount of chains that you put into your foundation chain will depend on your pet's neck size, but also the type of yarn you use. So for this bulky yarn, it started with 32 chains, but this smaller one made with worsted weight yarn was 64 chains, and you can see they both fit him, so it just totally varies. All that really matters is that you start with an even number of chains. So this yarn is completely different than those other 2, and I'm gonna do 46 chains. I know that's a good fit for him because it's the same yarn that I use for my spiderweb collar, which starts the same way. But you might have to play around with measurements for a little bit until you get the right fit. You can always do it and undo it. Okay, so to start, we're going to do a slip knot. So hold the yarn, wrap it around your finger twice, pick the back one up and over. Pick this one that's now the back one up and over and off your finger. That's a tight one. And then pull it tight. Then I'm gonna put my hook in, and there we go. Now I'm gonna start my foundation chain. I'm gonna chain 46. You might have a different number, but just make sure that it's an even number. So I'm gonna yarn over, pull through the loop, and that's 1 chain. Yarn over, pull through the loop, that's 2, 3, 4, 46. There we go, we have chain 46. So we have our chain 46, and you'll have whatever amount that you chained, but now it's time to connect the collar. And to do this, we wanna make sure that our chain has the front side up. So the front side will look like this. It will have the perfect V's going down it. This is what the back side looks like. It has those like nubs down the center. So we wanna make sure that this side is facing up, and then we're gonna lay it flat on the table. You might kinda wanna turn. Yeah, so just make sure it's not twisted. And then we're gonna take this end right here and just kind of slide it around to make a C shape, making sure that the front side is still facing up all the way around. Then we're gonna be working into our very first chain right here. That's the slip knot. And then we have our V for our first chain. After we connect the chain, we'll be doing our first row or round into the chain, working this direction. So we wanna make sure we connect it right. So I'm gonna try my best to re-grab the yarn so I can work into that end without moving everything around. So I still have my C shape, that ends, nothing's twisted around. I'm gonna pick it up and kind of just make sure it holds the same position. And now I'm going to work a slip stitch into that first chain right there. Sometimes the first chains are really tight for me. There, now it's connected. So now I'm going to take a stitch marker. I don't usually do this while I'm working, but visually I think it'll help right here. I'm gonna pull the chain or the hook out so we can see a little bit better. So now I'm gonna grab a stitch marker, and you can see the slip stitch we just made right here to connect the chain. It looks like one of our chains. So when I'm working around and come to the end later, I'm gonna mark this slip stitch right here. Oh, maybe. Why am I struggling with that? So I'm gonna mark this slip stitch right here so I know later that it's not a chain and it's the slip stitch and I don't work into it. But if you can just remember that, then you don't need a stitch marker. So round one should be 1 single crochet into each chain all the way around. So at the end of round one, you should have the same amount of single crochets as you did chains. So I'll have 46 single crochets because I did 46 chains. So my first stitch is going to be a single crochet into the same chain that we just worked into. So you can kind of see that gap right there. So I'm gonna go into the chain, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, and we have a single crochet. And then I'm just gonna keep doing that all the way down. So here is my next stitch. Yarn over, single crochet. And I'm just gonna keep doing that into each stitch all the way around. So I'm gonna jump ahead, but keep doing single crochets into each chain all the way around. Make sure you have the same amount of single crochets that you started with your foundation chain, and don't work into that slip stitch. Okay, I'm gonna pause the camera and I'll see you before I finish the round. So I'm back and I've done 45 single crochets into each chain, so I have one more to do. There's my next and last chain to work into, and then there is the slip stitch that's connecting the round. With this yarn, they really do look similar, but I'm gonna go in and do my last single crochet maybe. There we go. So to finish this round, I want to slip stitch into our first single crochet to close the round. So again, of course, here is our slip stitch right here, and there is my first single crochet. I am just going to go into that single crochet and slip stitch. I'm going to take this out finally. Oop. And there you go, you can see it's like really connected now. Now we're on to round two, which is gonna look a little bit different. To start, I'm gonna chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'm gonna take the loop and pull it big, because I'm gonna take the hook out and I don't wanna lose one of my chains while I move around and stuff. And it's time to get our next color. So now it's time to add the green yarn, and I'm gonna start the same way as before with a slip knot. I feel like it's easier to add it in that way. We have, whoa, our little loop to work with. But before we do that, I wanna take a stitch marker again and mark that slip stitch that we made right here to connect into our first single crochet. It should be at the base of your chain. So I'm gonna take a stitch marker and mark that just so we know where that is when we come back around later. Same thing as before. So now we need to attach the green, and we wanna attach the green to the same single crochet that we just worked out of. It's kind of hard to see because we slip stitched into it and we have our chain coming out of it, but into that same space right here that we just worked. So I'm gonna put my hook in and then attach my green. and then pull it through. And now I'm going to do a chain to hold it in there and kind of pull it tight. And then I'm going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then pull it big because I'm gonna do the same thing, pull my hook out, and now we're gonna switch back to red. But important, one thing to note, do your best not to get these two colors tangled since we're working with both of them. I have both of my yarns right here so I can kind of twist them around if I need to. But I usually actually get tangled a bunch while I do it. It's okay, you can just like untwist them. But back to red. So I'm gonna attach my hook to the red again. So we're gonna be working the red into the next stitch right here. You'll see these two chains are coming out of the same stitch, but moving forward, we're gonna be doing every other stitch. So let me show you. So I'm gonna hold my red yarn and then bring it up and over the green and into that next stitch, doing a slip stitch to connect it. And then I'm gonna chain 5 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then pull it big. It's too much of that yarn. And then we're gonna switch back to the green. And we're gonna be working the green into the next stitch right here. So it's behind right now. I'm gonna take it over the red and into that following stitch and slip stitch. And then chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pull it big because we're going on back to the red. Okay, so back to the red. Now I'm gonna push this down and I'm gonna take this up and over and work into the next stitch right here. So into that next stitch, yarn over, pull through, doing a slip stitch to attach them, and then chaining 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and pull it big. And now back to the green. So now you can kind of see the pattern that we're doing. We just worked out of this stitch. Now I need to work into this stitch. So I'm gonna take the green over the red and into that stitch, doing a slip stitch. And then chain 5. And then pulling it big and switching back to the other color, doing your best not to get tangled. So keep doing this all the way around, switching off colors and doing into the next single crochet a slip stitch, chaining 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, pulling it big, going to the next color. And just keep repeating this all the way around. I'm gonna jump to the end, or at least a little bit before the end, to show you how to finish it off. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I'll see you at the end, or close to the end. I'm back, and you can see I'm not at the end quite yet, but it is looking nice. It's starting to really come together with those little chains. I just wanted to show you that you probably will get twisted, and that's okay. You can literally just twist the collar around like this, and it untwists everything. So if you're getting all tangled, give that a try. Okay, back to crocheting. I'll see you when I get closer to the end. Okay, we're back and we've made it almost to the end. You see we have 2 stitches left, and then there's our slip stitch from before. I just attached a red, so now I need to go back into green. And then I'm gonna work into that next stitch, doing a slip stitch and a chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then back to red. And I'm going to go into that last stitch right here, doing a slip stitch. And since that is our last stitch, I'm not going to chain again. I'm just going to do 1 chain to kind of hold the spot there. And then I'm going to cut my yarn and pull it through. And then I'm just going to kind of really pull it tight. All right, but we still need to finish the green. So we have our slip stitch marked from before, and it might be tempting to work into that, and you probably could. It just kind of leaves a gap right here, which I don't love, but it really doesn't matter. I am actually gonna work into that same first single crochet right here. That's so full because we have our slip stitch into it and where we first attached the green, but I'm gonna just bring that green right back into where we started it. So I'm gonna remove the stitch marker so we're not working into that slip stitch right here. And I'm gonna go into that very crowded space that was our first single crochet. Let's make sure I can get in there. And then I'm gonna yarn over, pull through, and do a slip stitch. And then you probably could end it there, but I like to secure it a little bit more. And I'm gonna go back in and do another slip stitch. So pull it through and through that spot right there. And then I'm gonna cut the yarn and pull it through. Kind of pull it tight. But then I kind of want it, it's like out in the front right now. I definitely want it, it's kind of harder with this yarn. The fuzzier yarns are easier. I want it to go from the other side. So I'm gonna bring it back around. And then I kind of just like wiggle it out until it looks good. Then I'm gonna flip it over to the back side. We have our loose ends. Here is the end that we just cut and the other end that we just cut, and I like to tie them together. I don't know why this one's a little shorter. There we go. Tie together, 1 knot, and then another one. And then I need to weave in my loose ends to kind of just clean up the back. Make sure when you're sewing them in that you don't go through the front, just so it's just a little bit of a cleaner look. All right, once you have those in, I just trim them. If you know how to weave in your ends while you crochet, I like to do that. I don't show it on the video, but that's really helpful for the first 2, then you don't have to worry about this later. You're gonna have to still sew in the last 2 though. Whoa, and there we go. We have our cute little collar. It looks a little bit better than I thought. The red is looking a little bit less orange to me now paired with the green. No, it's still orange, but I just noticed it less. But cute. They're much cuter on. We're done. Thank you for watching this video. If you end up making a collar, let me know in the comments. Also, feel free to share a picture somehow. I always love seeing the pets in these outfits. They're so cute. But let me know if you have any questions. I'm here to help. And this one's so twisted, but they're cute on, okay? But yeah, anyways, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.